You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns. Welcome to Chakras and Shotguns, the podcast that guides you on a journey of spiritual development and personal preparedness. I'm Jenn, a former lawyer, yogi, and human design lover.
And I'm Mik, a marketer, energy healer, and prepper.
You probably know the basics of the moon cycles, especially if you listened to our last episode. But what about blue moons and harvest moons? How do those change the energy of the moon? Did you know that the moon also travels through each of the astrological signs? But what does that mean? And how can you pick up on the vibes that the moon is putting down? We'll jump into those topics today to help you better understand the moon's transits and other lunar terminology. We'll also tell you later in this episode how you can join us for a special live full moon workshop.
We'll get there in a moment, but we'll start as always with a breathwork exercise to put us in a mindful place.
All right. Find a comfortable seat. You can always lay down. If you're familiar with the yoga pose Shavasana, that's always nice. And take a moment to find stillness. Maybe put one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. And just allow yourself to be here in this moment. Taking a deep inhale in through your nose. Feeling your breath expand from your belly out through each of your limbs. And then sigh that breath back out through the mouth, contracting back in as you exhale every single bit of air. Let's do that again, inhaling in through your nose. Holding at the top. And then sighing that breath back out through your mouth. Maybe allowing your body to contract as you're exhaling all of that air out. Last one together, inhaling in through your nose. Just concentrating on this big, beautiful breath as it expands inside of you. And then this time, exhale that breath back out through the nose. Trying to match the length of that inhale. Releasing any tension, any places where you're holding. Softening the jaw. Releasing your tongue from the roof of your mouth. And now that we're a little bit more aware of the breath, I want you to visualize yourself near water. Maybe sitting on a beach right at the edge of the ocean. If water scares you, maybe sitting on a waterbed. We don't have to get picky. And just imagine the tide coming in and out. Maybe matching that in with your inhale. And matching the tide going out with your exhale. And for my waterbed people, just finding that wave. And feel how it carries you. Feeling the ebb and flow of nature and surrendering to it. Understanding that that's going to match life, that's going to match your breath. And just experiencing this with curiosity, maybe childlike wonder at how water can move and can carry you. Take one last inhale in together, filling yourself up with gratitude for being present in this moment. And exhale that breath back out through your mouth. All right. Thanks for joining me on that and, powering through when I started talking about waterbeds, but I'm trying to be inclusive.
Did anyone in your family have a waterbed?
No.
Okay. I saw this meme that like every black person knew at least one person
Oh, wait.
that had a waterbed.
I've been on a waterbed before and as a kid, so it had to have been somebody in my family.
Yeah, my uncle had one. It's very random.
How do they get them inside? Do you fill them in? Like, how do you fill them?
I do not know the logistics.
Do they still sell them?
We should Google that after the episode.
Okay. Before I get way off task.
All right. So back on the moon. In our last episode, we talked about working with the different phases of the moon. So waning gibbouses, full moons, new moons, etc. So definitely go back and check that out. But in that episode, toward the end, Jen threw out that there was so much more that we should talk about. And we can even get into the astrological signs of the moon. And we were like, oh, we'll do it sometime in the future. Well, we decided that the future is now.
Surprise, you didn't have to wait as long as maybe we thought. So we wanted to address a few lunar terms that we didn't touch on before. You may have heard of some of these: blue moon, blood moon, strawberry moon.
Yeah. So just to define a few of those. The most common definition of blue moon, apparently there's some controversy around the blue moon terminology that I found. But the most common definition of blue moon is it is the second full moon that occurs in a calendar month. The blood moon is another name for a lunar eclipse. It gets its name because like the sun is kind of illuminating the edges of the moon and creates like this reddish color. So that's where blood moon comes from. And then all of the other moon names, so things like harvest moon, strawberry moon, pink moon, there's like the sturgeon moon and the wolf moon and all these other moons, right? Those are nicknames that are given to full moons that occur in a specific month, right? It's like the January full moon is the wolf moon, for example, right? And so the practice of giving names to each full moon actually originated with Native Americans in the northeastern part of the U.S. And basically they used these names to kind of keep track of the seasons throughout the year. And so they would name them those different moons. So we'll do like a Instagram post that shows like all of the different ones for each of the months. So
yeah. A couple of things on that. How cool is it that we used to be so connected to nature and what the earth was giving us, that it guided basically how we moved, you know? I think that's really cool. I also think it's really funny to imagine scientists somewhere beefing about what a blue moon is. Like the girls are fighting. Like, I think that's hilarious. I feel like it's like Real Housewives of like, and Bill Nye would be on there, you know?
Yeah. So apparently like the other definition is like the third moon out of 4 moons that happens in a season is called the blue moon. That was like the original definition, but like somewhere in like the early 1900s, like 1930s, I think it was, there was like
the Sprite remix.
Yeah, exactly.
In the last episode, we mentioned that the moon from new moon to new moon orbits the Earth in 29.5 days. So in that time period, the moon goes through each astrological sign from Aries to Pisces. This means that the moon switches astrological signs every 2.5 days. And remember that the moon affects the tides of the ocean, hence the breathwork inspo today. The ocean, which I mean, let's just talk about the ocean. Okay. We don't even have a full picture of how deep the ocean is. Of like we cannot get fully to the deepest part of the ocean floor. We don't know what the fuck's down there. Okay. And the moon is impacting the ocean. So the moon definitely has vibes and energy that we're also probably picking up on as well.
As you were talking about the depth of the ocean, there was this little voice inside of me, and it sounded like Cisco, and he said, "How deep? From how deep is your love for me?"
We're singing on the podcast now?
I'm just telling you, I was imitating the voice on the inside of me.
Hit it one more time.
How deep?
Oh, Lord!
Don't have my bad voice, singing voice on here.
You don't want to edit it.
Well, yeah, I might take that out. So anyway, of course, as we mentioned before, the phase of the moon can make all of this astrological talk more complicated, right? So an example, a full moon in the sign of Aries would only happen when the sun is in Libra. And so there's all these combinations that can occur with there's a different phase of the moon when it's in Aries, et cetera, et cetera. And, we could go on and on and on about what those different combinations mean in terms of energy. But for simplicity, in today's episode, we're just going to get into the moon's monthly transit through each of the signs. So we'll kind of keep the phases out of it for this talk.
And remember, I'm going to take it all the way back to like our first astrology episode. I don't remember the number. We'll put it in the show notes. But you're cutting up the sky like a pizza pie into 12 slices. And so when the moon appears in that slice, that's what we mean that it's in that astrological sign.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So first up, Aries. It's a bold, brave, fearless sign. It's a fire sign. Aries is known for being fiery. So when the moon is in Aries, you may feel energetic and passionate and ready to act. You want to be cautious of not biting off more than you can chew / writing a check that your ass can't cash. I've always loved that. Love that term. So that's moon in Aries.
Next up, Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign that's grounded, practical, good quality taste. When the moon is in Taurus, you may want to take a look at your financial goals and your budget. You also may want to reach for comfort, but watch out for being stagnant. This isn't the time to press pause on your goals or turn down your hard work.
Moving into Gemini, and when this episode drops, if you're up to date, the moon will be in Gemini. It's an air sign, and Gemini is quick-witted, intellectual, social. And when the moon is in Gemini, you may definitely feel this. You want to go out and talk to people, and you have so many ideas. Things to watch out for when you're under the influence of moon in Gemini. Don't be a gossip girl. So watch your mouth. Keep people's names out your mouth.
All right. So now we move into Cancer. The Cancer sign energy is nurturing and emotional. Everything about the home is Cancer domain. So when the moon is in Cancer, it's a good time to have peace and quiet. Maybe, do a little spring cleaning, clean up the crib, spend time with family. Just make sure not to let your feelings get out of whack.
Time for Leo, another fire sign. Leo energy is about confidence, extravagance, being in the limelight. When the moon is in Leo, you might feel a little extra, a little dramatic, and you're craving the limelight maybe a little bit. Now's the time to do some self-promotion. Any place where you've been needing a little extra confidence, this is your time to shine. So it's a good opportunity to schedule a date, maybe head to a party. You don't want to overspend or overindulge, though, and make sure you're not doing the absolute most. You can put a little extra on it, but don't be doing the most.
Next up, we got Virgo. This is the perfectionist earth sign. Virgo is about practicality and being grounded. So when the moon is in Virgo, try to get in the weeds, focus on the details. It's a good time to maybe organize, plan, think about maybe your next career move. Maybe you want to do a geographical move, But don't turn this critical eye onto others, right? You want to focus on yourself. It's not a time to micromanage and nitpick those around you.
Moving on to Libra. Libra is an air sign and is represented by the scales and ruled by Venus. So it's the scales, it's all about balance, peace, and Venus, it's all about romance and love. When the moon is in Libra, you may feel more diplomatic. You might try to bridge the gap between some people in your life that are beefing. You're seeing both sides. You're getting everyone's perspective. You're also feeling a little romantic.
Hey.
So connect with others and your boo. You want to watch out for people pleasing and straddling the fence in conflict, though.
Let me do a little math. I'm trying to figure out when Libra is going to be.
You always trying to do some math with some Libra.
Just saying.
Well, you're always trying to do some math about romance.
Exactly.
Well,
what's wrong with that?
There ain't nothing wrong with that.
Next date night on the calendar. Next up, Scorpio. This water sign is mysterious and intense. Scorpio is about intuition, perception, transformation, and ambition. When the moon is in Scorpio, you may feel intense, passionate, right on the heels of feeling romantic from Libra. Good time to get freaky. So, I'm going to think about that night where Libra and Scorpio intersect. Feel me? Because it's going from the next one to the next one.
Why did you sound like the TikTok and they were sisters?
You knew where I was going. So I'm going to look for date plans on that night. So be careful, though, during that time when the moon is in Scorpio. You want to be careful of feeling suspicious and jumping to conclusions on folks.
Oh, Lord. I hope you don't do it on your boo. Being freaky, he do something new. Now you getting suspicious. You jump into conclusions. So let's move on to Sagittarius, a fire sign. Sagittarius is expansive, spontaneous, loves to explore, loves to travel. Sagittarius is about intellectualism, sarcasm, and always seeking the truth. When the moon is in Sagittarius, you may feel energized and impulsive. You might start a new hobby, book a trip, send out your resume. It's definitely leaping before you look energy, but make sure you're gathering like the bare minimum of facts before you charge ahead.
All right, now we have Capricorn. Capricorn, another earth sign. Its energy is related to hard work, ambition, and being dependable. When the moon is in Capricorn, you may feel like, you want to take some steps in your career, grab your career by the horns. Maybe it's time to start thinking of your 5-year plan. Capricorn energy can maybe have you feeling a little bit rigid, so make sure that you can be flexible with any plans that you do make.
Next, my fave, my sun sign, Aquarius. Aquarius is an air sign and is quirky and marches to the beat of its own drum, as I tend to do. Aquarius is about innovation and progress. So when the moon is in Aquarius, think about doing something out of the norm for you. You may also start looking more ahead to the future, right after you got your career plan together when the moon was in Capricorn. You see what we did there? But make sure that you're hearing others out, even though you're feeling like the mastermind and that you're on the cutting edge.
And finally, Pisces. So Pisces is actually my moon sign. So I have a special place in my heart for Pisces. Pisces is a water sign, but also the last sign of the zodiac. So it's said that Pisces encompasses elements of all the signs that came before. Pisces is adaptable and esoteric in connection with its intuition and emotions. When the moon is in Pisces, it's all about fantasy. You may feel creative and dreamy. So it's a good time to start an art project or lay out, daydream a little bit. While it's a great time to self-reflect, don't shut the world out, though, during this time.
And that covers the moon transiting across each of the zodiac signs. Let's talk about when the moon transit is conjunct, meaning in the same sign with some aspects of your birth chart. And I love that we explain what conjunct meant, because everybody's like, oh, it's in the square, sextile, triad, conjunct. You're like, what? So that just means when the moon is in this and that this is also your sun sign. So what does it mean when your moon is in your sun sign? This may be a day where you feel exceptionally like yourself. Remember, your sun sign represents your core personality, your sense of self, your basic preferences, and the ways in which you move through the world. So on those 2.5 days, you may feel more confident. You may feel like your intuition is stronger. You may even feel like more eyes are on you in a good way, right? They see you, you out here, you shining. This is a good time to sign an agreement, resolve issues, and make your plan for the month ahead. So I actually looked back at the last time that the moon was in Aquarius, and it was actually last week. And we took a trip to Joshua Tree to go check on our short-term rental. We're still working on it, still trying to get it together, child. And we were planning on spending the night. We had our girls with us, and the trip was quickly becoming a dud. And I was like, I know exactly what I want to get done. I had it all in my head. We're charging ahead. We're moving this project forward. And Mick was like, we got to call it. And I was like, we gonna be okay. Like, we were missing parts to the bed. I was like, we just gonna sleep on a mattress on the floor. It's gonna be fine. He was like, we're going home. And so I had to hear him out. And so, yeah, that was a day trip.
Yeah, I think for me, the last time the moon was in my sun sign, which is Gemini, I was looking back at the calendar and I actually had a healing session with someone. And I remember specifically in that session that, like, I was in my bag. Like, I was like really channeling things, getting information downloads. And it was like right on the money in terms of what this person was experiencing. So it was dope. Like, I felt like I need to try to make sure I'm always available for healing sessions on days in which the moon is transiting in my birth sun, you know? So
that's a really interesting point about working with the moon.
Mm-hmm. Because yeah, I was on point. So quick plug, if you have not had an opportunity, check out my website, my sessions where I do remote as well as in-person healing sessions. If you're in LA, check that out. So moving on, I want to talk about when the moon is transiting in your natal moon sign. This is actually called a lunar return, and it may be a time where you feel more emotional and a bit moody. So your moon sign represents your emotional side, your feelings, your intuition, and memories. This is a time for comfort, not necessarily taking charge. You may want to do things like assess your relationships or your home life. For me, I was looking back at the calendar like, when was the last time the moon was in Pisces, which is my moon sign? And it was actually yesterday, the day before we recorded this episode, and I was like really in my feelings. Like, I was having a difficult like day. I couldn't really like get out the blocks. I couldn't like get to my to-do list and like tackle things, which is funny. It's like, you know, this isn't a day for taking charge, right? Like, and I could not get things going yesterday, and I didn't really pay attention to what the moon was doing. But now, like, in thinking about it, I was like, oh, this is right on point.
Yeah, my moon sign is Gemini, and when the moon was in Gemini, I was having like somebody had said something which wasn't nice, but it shouldn't have sent me into a tailspin like that. And I was very much so in my feelings and feeling very emotional. There is a couple of dates I need to check. I checked that one. I need to check another one because it was like I was driving and I was listening to Beyonce's Freedom and I just started weeping. Why? Then as a woman, you throw in PMS and like whatever the hell else you got going on, and it's just a lot. This is why if you want to work with the moon and the moon energy and you want to try and just see where you might be feeling the moon's influence a little heavier throughout the lunar cycle, is why we suggested keeping a journal, because we were kind of going back and we were like, well, what were we doing that day? When we were putting together this episode, we were like, oh, Mick was like, I was definitely in my feelings that day. And I was like, oh shit, I was crying. I was crying that day too. So like, just trying to keep track of, journaling is always good, but it might also help you see where these outside and external forces might be kind of tipping the scales a little bit. Mm-hmm. And if you listen to the last episode, we said this in the last episode, if you're wondering how the hell am I supposed to track all of this, Moon X is a great app that keeps track of the moon's transit day by day with some helpful tips on how to best harness the energy of the moon each day. I mean, it'll tell you this is a great day for a haircut. Mm-hmm. Don't go do beauty procedures today. This is not a good day for that. This is a great day to sign an agreement. And it works with your birthday and your birth time as well. So that's a really good one because you don't have to come. You can keep coming back and listening to this episode, but it might also be helpful to have it in an app form. So marry this episode with episode 67 and play around with harnessing the energy of the moon, specifically with the astrological signs, your sun and moon sign. So it can be really interesting. We said earlier that it can be very complex, that the new moon in Capricorn is only going to happen at a certain point of time in the year, but you'll be able to see, this is a new moon. This is when I'm setting my intentions, and this new moon is in Capricorn. So I'm going to set my intentions for my career this month. Or it's a full moon coming up and it's all about release, and a full moon is in Leo. I'm going to release my fears and my reservations around confidence and taking up space. So you can start adding in these additional layers and complexity as you get more and more comfortable with the moon energy and astrological signs.
Yes, so definitely go and check out the Moon X app. Super helpful resource. Before we go, I did want to remind you guys, we said at the beginning of the show that you would have an opportunity to work with us during the next full moon. That next full moon, it will be in Scorpio on May 5th. And we will be doing a special live workshop that you can sign up for to join us. So click the link in the show notes and you will be able to go ahead and sign up and register for that.
Very excited about that. And finally, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you listen.
Namaste.